So Scott Moe just did something rare in Canadian politics. He praised the federal government. I know, check outside for flying pigs. But hold on, because this pipeline deal between Alberta and Ottawa has Saskatchewan's premier practically giddy, and honestly, when a prairie premier gets excited about oil infrastructure, you know something's brewing. Meanwhile, BC's David Eby is getting roasted faster than a Tim Hortons coffee bean, and we need to talk about why this pipeline drama is about to become your new favorite political soap opera. Alright, let's break down what actually happened here, because this isn't just about pipes and oil. Yesterday, and by yesterday I mean the day this MOU dropped, was apparently Christmas morning for the Canadian oil industry. Alberta and Ottawa signed a memorandum of understanding to get a new pipeline built to the west coast, and Scott Moe is treating it like Canada just won Olympic gold in hockey. He sat down with Evan Bray and basically said this could mean higher prices for every barrel of Canadian oil, which translates to more money flowing into provincial coffers, more jobs, and less oil sitting around like an awkward guest at a party nobody invited. But here's the kicker, Moe's not just excited about the oil. He's doing the math on what this means for everything else Saskatchewan ships. Right now, oil companies are using rail to move their product because pipeline capacity is tighter than a jar of pickles your grandma opened in 2003. That means agricultural products and potash are fighting for space on those same trains. Get oil into pipelines, and suddenly there's room for Saskatchewan's other exports to actually move. It's like freeing up storage space on your phone by deleting all those screenshots you swore you'd need someday. Now, here's where it gets spicy, and trust me, this is the good stuff. Scott Moe used words we almost never hear from provincial premiers when talking about federal liberals, words like credit and supporting Canadian industry and working alongside. After what he calls a dry decade of federal-provincial tension, Moe's basically saying Prime Minister Mark Carney and his government are finally playing ball. And he's not wrong to be shocked. The last decade of pipeline politics in Canada has been about as smooth as driving through Winnipeg in January with summer tires. We've had protests, court battles, cancellations, and enough political theatre to fill a Netflix series. But Moe's giving credit where credit is due. He's praising Carney for making concessions and actually working with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who apparently pushed harder for this deal than a hockey mom pushes her kid toward the NHL. And look, whether you love pipelines or hate them, you've got to admit it's refreshing to see different levels of government actually cooperating instead of throwing shade at each other on Twitter like teenagers. But wait, there's a plot twist, and his name is David Eby. While Moe and Smith are popping champagne, British Columbia's premier is sitting in the corner like the kid who didn't get invited to the birthday party. Moe didn't hold back his criticism, and honestly, it was delivered with the subtlety of a moose wandering onto the Trans-Canada Highway. The implication is clear. BC is being the roadblock, the buzzkill, the person who shows up to the potluck with store-bought cookies. And in Canadian politics, that's basically a declaration of war. Here's the thing about BC and pipelines, they've been the thorn in every energy project's side for years. Environmental concerns, Indigenous rights, coastal protection, all valid issues, don't get me wrong. But from the perspective of oil-producing provinces, BC's opposition feels like showing up to a group project and vetoing everyone's ideas without suggesting alternatives. Moe's frustration isn't just about this pipeline, it's about years of watching potential economic opportunities get tangled up in political red tape thicker than poutine gravy. Let's talk about what this actually means for regular Canadians, because spoiler alert, it's not just about rich oil executives buying third vacation homes. Higher oil prices might sound bad if you're thinking about gas prices at the pump, but here's the reality check, Canadian oil is getting sold either way. The question is whether we're getting top dollar for it or selling it at a discount because we have limited ways to get it to market. Right now, Canada is basically that person selling concert tickets below face value because they need cash fast. A West Coast pipeline changes that equation entirely. More export options mean better prices, which means more revenue for provinces, which theoretically means better funding for healthcare, education, and infrastructure. You know, the stuff we all actually use. And for Saskatchewan specifically, this is huge. Moe's talking about indirect benefits that ripple through the entire economy. More rail capacity for potash means more exports of one of Saskatchewan's biggest industries. More agricultural products moving efficiently means prairie farmers can get their crops to market faster. It's the economic equivalent of finally fixing that one traffic light in your city that's been causing backups for years. But let's pump the brakes for a second, because this MOU isn't a done deal, it's a handshake. Moe himself admitted this is the first of many steps. There are consultations to be done, Indigenous communities to engage with, environmental assessments to complete, and private sector companies that actually have to decide this project is worth the investment. An MOU is basically political dating. It's not a marriage, it's a let's see where this goes. And in Canadian infrastructure, the distance between let's see where this goes and we're actually building this thing is longer than the drive from Vancouver to St. John's. There are legitimate questions that need answering. How will this pipeline respect Indigenous land rights? What are the environmental safeguards? What happens if there's a spill? These aren't trivial concerns, and pretending they don't exist is how projects get cancelled after billions are already spent. So while Moe's optimism is nice, we're a long way from breaking ground. Look, Canadian pipeline politics is messy, complicated, and more polarizing than pineapple on pizza. But what makes this story interesting is seeing provincial and federal governments actually trying to work together instead of just yelling past each other. Whether this pipeline gets built or becomes another cautionary tale in Canadian infrastructure history remains to be seen. So what do you think? Is this pipeline deal the economic boost Canada needs, or are we rushing into something without thinking through the consequences? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to stay updated on Canadian politics without the boring stuff, hit that subscribe button because we're posting multiple times a day with all the political drama, analysis, and occasional chaos you need. I'm Canadian Insights, and I'll catch you in the next one.